Alice Cooper took Us out. You guys went out, I think, with Maiden, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't that was your next step, right?
Yeah, it was great. Look, we've opened for a lot of great. We did some Ozzy shows too, which was awesome. Just stuff. The early days of Zach. Remember those early days of Zach? I remember the first time walking in. Anthrax opening for Ozzy, and walking in and knowing full well that he was a New Jersey guy. Zach was a New Jersey guy, right? Yeah. I remember the whole look. He had the construction boots on in the dressing room. You hear him wailing and going to the dressing room, and he's just one of the guy that right. So he's always been that same dude.
He still is. Yeah, he still is.
He still is that same guy, and you got to love him. So these were great times. That's kind of like another book somewhere about the openings of all these. And you're like, when we opened for Kiss, I mean, these are big deals for fanboys like you and I are, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, poor Gene and Paul, I asked them every question. Every question I ever wanted to know as a 15-year-old kid that I found out, and these poor guys had to answer every question, but they did, and I really respect them for that.
So speaking of which, I wanted to bring up your book, because this is I knew you, the happy fist in the air, always kind of smile, that guy, right? And then we did our Altitudes and Attitude record, right? And I remember we were talking about it, I think in Bass Player Live or something, the event hosted by Bass Player Magazine, and you said, hey, I know the guy to produce it, because we didn't know if we're going to make a clinic, some clinic songs or whatever. And I remember you sent over Booze and Cigarettes, and all of a sudden it was like, okay, we got real songs here, and there it is. There's the album. We did the EP first, and then we did the full length album. And Jay Rustin was there, producer, and he's a bass player. So now he's by mentioning his name, he's now part of the Bass Coalition. So
that's true.
Welcome, Jay.
Good point.
And so we went over to his studio there in Sherman Oaks and started, making our record with Jeff Friedel, cutting tracks. But as you were bringing songs in, and even the songs were you had a nice sort of cheerful feeling about it. And then they started looking at the lyrics and going, whoa. Like heavy, dark lyrics, dude. What's going on? So we got to have a conversation, and I got to know a very different Frank Bello, the human Frank Bello, the father, the son, the family man, and obviously you and Charlie, he's your uncle. Yeah. I didn't know a lot of these dynamics as they started to come together. It's like, oh, okay. And I remember we were talking about, I said, dude, you got to write a book, and Niger had written my book with me. He'd written a book on Cliff Burton. And I'm glad it finally worked out. And we're going to hope to have Joel here on the show with us, because he's also a bass player.
Absolutely. And
now part of the bass
Joel, FYI, Joel has an amazing son bass player. Dude, this guy rips on bass. Ask him about it. This kid really rips. He's the next generation, which I'm very proud of. Awesome.
Okay, good. Now, when I first got the book, besides this handsome man on the cover,
I don't know about that things.
Right. I saw it forward by Gene Simmons. I was like, okay, you got my attention, right? Being, again, the Kiss fan. And I knew that you would go hang out at their management office, whether you're managed by Bill Coyne, and basically stand there and
talk them pretty much.
And you go very in-depth on it. But I see it. This foreword from Gene, when I read it, I literally was in tears. I mean, I was getting choked up going,
thank you.
Knowing your story, knowing what this foreword was that Gene wrote, not as the God of Thunder, but as a man, as a human, as a family man, similar kind of upbringing as yours in a lot of ways, with the family of origin stuff. I just want to read something here from Gene.
Sure.
He goes, thank God for this thing we do, this suit of armor we wear on stage. Like Gestalt therapy or Dr. Yanov's primal scream therapy. Look it up, he says. Playing music allows us to be in a padded room and scream our heads off to try and get the rage out. It's part and parcel of what Frank's band Anthrax and my band Kiss does. We get up and play aggressive music. It's an outlet. It lets out some of that rage, at least for a while. When you're quiet for a while, it creeps back. So it's good to keep playing on stage in front of people. And I was just like, man, if that doesn't describe, I think, the heart and soul of every, not just musician, but certainly a performer. And I think we have comedian friends, we know actors, right? Who go into character. Because when we're on stage, we go into a character, right? And like we talked about, even when you're sick, you got to be in character. You got to put it on. So in the book, you told a very different story from what I think a lot of us knew of you. And again, I got to know it through the Altitudes and Attitude records. So, in the journey of telling the story, so we'll get to the kiss moments here in a minute, because there's a funny one about Gene and the cookies. But in telling the story, were you nervous about sort of telling your life story, and just of what this other part of your life was? Because this isn't a book you write in your 20s, your 30s, even your 40s. It's a book you write at a certain point in your life when you're ready to kind of reveal all it is.
Exactly that. Well, and really well said. I wrote that book with Joe during COVID in my basement right here. This is where I wrote the book. He was in England. I was here, and I at first was very, very close to the vest, and because I didn't know how much I wanted to reveal. Because look, there's a lot of scarring. Everybody's got stories. I'm no different than anybody else. But the truth of the matter is, if what it came to be was, if I can help somebody going through the same stuff or something like it, the traumatic stuff that I've gone through, and you can get off the floor, brush yourself off, and say, all right, what's next? That was the catalyst to make me go and I open up more. And just kind of after a while, I remember I know you don't drink, Dave, but I do. I had a bottle of vodka on the side there. Some of those stories in that book, just to get through them, because in talking about my brother's stuff with his murder, and I couldn't get through it. And there were breaks that had to be in a shot. And during talking about it, because it brought me back to the same spot where that murder happened. It was just terrible, right? But that's the kind of revealing I think that needed to happen, because people go through crazy shit in this life. And look, if I'm available to open myself up and make it say, look, Frank went through this and he's getting through it. He's getting through it and he's moving on with his life. Maybe I could do that instead of going the other way. That was really important to me. And then maybe it's the age I'm at right now. Maybe it's just the kind of person I want to be.